Storyteller presents Ascendance of a Bookworm Chapter 2 from the Daughter of a Soldier arc. Diving into Myne's desperate quest for books in a world without bookstores, let's begin. These last 3 days have been horrible, the character thinks, sighing. Sounds of clanging objects are heard, startling the character who peeks over a table. After I realized there were neither books nor even words or paper in the house, I fell into despair and just kept crying. And then my fever came back. Actually, this whole lifestyle is horrible, the character thinks, lamenting. The toilet is a chamberpot in the room, and they just dump it outside the window with a thump. And my father, who I haven't gotten used to yet, strips me and changes my clothes for me. Myne resists, crying eek. But there were a few small victories, Myne thinks. What passes for common sense here is just too different. It's failure after failure. Looks like I won't survive here unless I throw away the maiden's heart and dignity I had when I was Urano, Myne thinks, sighing. Turi and my mother give me strange looks, but it still makes me feel better, Myne thinks. Since there aren't any baths here, I at least get a rub down every day. And an unknown voice asks Myne, "What are you doing?" The character struggles to tie her long hair, saying, "My hair's in the way. So I was thinking of tying it up, but it isn't going very well." "Your hair is straight, after all," an unknown character says. "Yeah, even when I tie it up with some string, it just comes loose," Myne replies with a slide sound. A young girl approaches a partially open wooden door, looking into the darkness beyond. Turi delivers an impassioned compliment about Myne's hair, shouting, "What? But Myne, your hair is so beautiful. It looks just like the night sky." Myne reacts with a flustered expression and a sweat drop. Turi continues her impassioned compliment about Myne's hair, shouting, "What? But Myne, your hair is so beautiful. It looks just like the night sky." Myne reacts with surprise and slight embarrassment. A young girl is contemplating her situation, thinking, A young girl expresses a sudden realization, thinking, "Oh, I know." Myne tries to break off a piece of a basket, asking if she can break this bit here off. Myne reacts with extreme shock, shouting, "That's dolls." An unknown character confronts Myne with a broken doll, shouting, "Myne, you're so mean. Didn't realize it was that important." "Ah, I'm sorry," Myne says, apologizing profusely for breaking the doll. Myne, holding a small object, thinks, I need a thin stick of wood like that doll's leg. Where can I get one? I need a hairpin. Wait, that word won't. Myne is contemplating the object needed to fix the doll and how to acquire it. Myne reacts with extreme surprise or shock. Myne twists her hair into pigtails. Turi is meticulously carving wood with a knife, making a chinking sound. Myne is shown from behind, highlighting her newly braided hair. "Something like this?" an unknown character asks, offering a thin stick to Myne. "Yes, thank you, Turi," Myne replies emphatically and gratefully. Myne is shown in profile, delicately squeezing her hair with a thin stick. Turi scolds Myne for her hairstyle, saying, "Wait. Hey, Myne, you can't do that. Only adults can put all their hair up like that." Myne asks. "Whoa," an unknown character exclaims. "Turi, there's no mirror here, so I can't tell. Does this look okay?" Myne asks, questioning and slightly hesitant. Myne reacts with surprise, asking, "How did you do that?" Myne meticulously styles her hair. Myne demonstrates a new hairstyle to Turi, asking, "How about this?" And so, Myne thinks, "I got myself a hairpin, but next I have to do something about my." Myne expresses hesitant acceptance while feeling uneasy about her current appearance, specifically her hair, thinking, "Well, I guess it's okay, but..." And so, Myne says, "Yeah, it's fine, it's fine." An unknown character asks, looking from the front, "It looks like you've got a stick stuck in your head. You're okay with that?" Myne rests her head on her arm, expressing deep disappointment. Myne is deep in thought, expressing disgust over the condition of her hair and resolving to address it, thinking, "But next I have to do something about my hair. It's all greasy and it feels nasty." Myne continues her internal monologue, thinking, "It's all greasy and it feels nasty. Now I just need to make myself some shampoo," Myne thinks, as an unknown voice asks, "Myne, how are you?" An unknown woman gently checks Myne's temperature, saying, "Looks like your fever has gone down. Are you feeling a little more energetic?" Myne replies, "Yep." Myne's mother, Effa, invites Myne to the market, saying, "Well, if you're feeling better, since today is a market day, how about you come with me?" Myne reacts with surprise and curiosity to the word shopping, asking, "Shopping?" Myne questions her mother, "But Mom, didn't you say this was when your work at the dyers is the busiest?" Her mother replies, "Well, I asked some of the others to take over for me as a favor so I could take the day off." Myne's mother relays Turi's observation, saying, Turi said you were probably crying that day because you were so lonely lately. Myne confesses she was depressed because she couldn't find any books, apologizing to Effa, who comforts her, saying it's all right, dear, when you're sick, it's hard being alone. An unseen character informs Myne Turi is going to head out to the woods with Ralph and the others, but it's probably a little too early for you since you just got over your fever. Effa invites Myne, would you like to come shopping with Mama? Yeah, I want to go. Myne enthusiastically accepts an invitation to go out, prompting Effa to comment on her newfound energy, saying, my, look how energetic you've gotten. Myne reacts with shock to her own plan for acquiring books, visually depicted as a flowchart, gasping. Myne laughs excitedly, thinking there may not be books in the house, but she might find some out there. Effa smiles at Myne with amusement, saying that's 'cause it's gonna be so fun. Myne thinks I don't care if they're not big tomes, even a simple primer. Something they use to teach letters to children. I'd be fine with those too. If I crank up the cuteness and beg, I should at least be able to get a picture book out of it, right? Myne thinks, scheming to use her perceived cuteness to acquire books, visualized by a chibi version of herself and an idealized younger version. Youfu fun can't wait. Myne thinks, smug. Myne calls out to her mother, Mama, I'm headed out. From what I've heard, she goes out to get firewood as well as fruit and mushrooms. Myne cheers, do your best, Turi. My nutrition is counting on you. Gathered resources like firewood, fruit, and mushrooms are displayed. Turi gives Myne final safety instructions. Make sure to stick together with the others and be careful. Myne replies, okay. She's not going out to the forest to play. It's actually a type of chore. Narration states, as a young girl walks cheerfully outdoors carrying a large basket, two children are engaged in manual labor, one sawing wood and another operating a spinning wheel. Narration states, all the children help out around the house or have jobs. In this world where they've got pretty much nothing, obviously there aren't any schools around. Effa tells Myne they are ready to go shopping, saying, okay, let's go shop. If I have a choice, I'd just love to be an apprentice librarian or an apprentice at a bookstore. Myne expresses her career aspirations to Effa. Myne reacts with intense disgust, exclaiming, it's cold. You and so narrow, and ITSDINKS. Myne steps through an open doorway. Myne reacts with distress and confusion upon entering a new room, thinking, Myne, hurry up and jump on. An unknown character instructs as they prepare to depart. Effa tells Myne she can't walk all the way to the market, so she gets to ride on Mama's back. Effa urges Myne, come on, hurry up. Myne responds hesitantly, oh, okay. Effa tightly hugs or squeezes Myne while carrying her. I think I should at least be able to walk that far, though, Myne thinks, as Effa carries Myne on her back, walking forward, accompanied by the sound of footsteps. A narrow, old-world alleyway or street is depicted with a small figure standing alone. Effa and another woman are conversing by a well, both carrying children on their backs. Myne is carried on Effa's back, observing her surroundings. A young girl walks along a street carrying a basket. Myne and Effa walk through a bustling town street. Myne reacts with intense wonder and awe to an unseen stimulus, saying, wow, it's just like those collections of photos of old European towns I saw, Myne thinks, exclaiming, amazing. Myne is carried on Effa's back, secured with a cloth, looking forward. Myne asks Effa, Mom, what kind of store are we going to? What are you talking about? I said we're going to the market, didn't I? Effa asks, surprised and slightly exasperated, clarifying their destination. The panel depicts a static shot of a shop, serving as a backdrop for the narrative commentary. An unknown voice says, they aren't the kind of place we go often. Another says, the shops are for people with a lot of... Myne points towards a distant castle, asking, is that a castle? Mom. Myne thinks, so I guess if there's a bookstore, it'd be among these one-floor shops. A grand temple building is shown. An unknown voice says, when you're 7 years old, you'll go there to be baptized. It's the temple. Those are the castle walls, an unknown voice says. On the other side is the castle where our Lord lives and all the mansions of the nobles. Not that we see much of them, though. A large, fortified city gate is displayed prominently. An unknown voice says, that's a big gate, huh? A large, fortified city gate is displayed prominently. An unknown voice says, those are the castle walls. On the other side is the castle where our Lord lives and all the mansions of the nobles. Not that we see much of them, though. An unknown character asks, so what's that? That wall going all the way around the town? Another replies, that's the outer wall. It's the wall that protects. Effa asks, and you know Gunter is a guard at the south gate, right, Myne? Gunter, Myne's father, is introduced as a soldier who guards the gate. Myne thinks, Gunter, that's my dad. Myne's memories told me he works as a soldier, so I guess more specifically he guards the gate. But setting that aside, this town has a castle with a lord and a big wall around it. Myne thinks so that makes this a proper city. Judging by the size of the city and the amount of people walking around, I don't think the scale is too large, but I can't really use places like Tokyo or Yokohama as a comparison. Myne thinks, forget just my house. I can't see a single word anywhere in the city. I can't just ask my family every single question I have. They'll probably start wondering about me. Myne thinks, expressing an internal dilemma about her unusual knowledge and questions. Actually, Myne is being carried through a busy city street, thinking. A carved wooden board depicts a spinning wheel and a spool of thread. Forget just my house, I can't see a single word anywhere in the city. Myne thinks, is the literacy rate just really low around here? Myne observes the city and internally notes the complete absence of written language, thinking, forget just my house. I can't see a single word anywhere in the panel presents a detailed view of a building exterior, specifically focusing on a wooden sign depicting a bird. Myne reacts with intense shock, thinking, wait, could it be that they just don't have an alphabet at all here? Effa enthusiastically points out the market to Myne, saying, look, Myne, here's the market. Myne thinks, Mom, there aren't any words. Hey, now wait a second. Myne reacts with extreme, comically exaggerated shock and disbelief to her own realization, stammering a protest and processing the implications. I hadn't even considered that possibility. A busy marketplace scene is depicted with various people engaged in buying and selling. Myne reacts with extreme shock while being carried by Effa. Myne points at something off-panel, questioning Effa, Mom, what's that? What are those wooden things? These are faplants. They're like potatoes, Effa explains, as the panel shows a close-up on a stall displaying 2 types of root vegetables, with a price sign visible. Effa explains the concept of pricing to Myne, saying, those have the prices written on them. It tells you how much money you have to pay to buy these things. Myne on Effa's back calls out, hey, Mom, what's written there? Myne attempts to interpret a number on a wooden board, asking, so then this one means 30 real. Myne points out and compares prices, saying, well, this one says 20 and this one. Myne says, mildly annoyed but ultimately accepting, as Effa embraces Myne and praises her quick learning, saying, that's right. Amazing, Myne. I can't believe you remembered them all that quickly. Myne observes her surroundings, thinking, at any rate, looks like they do have numbers and letters here, so that's a relief. A miracle at 10, a genius at 15. And then once you're over 20, you're just a normal person to others, Myne thinks, internally reflecting on her perceived intellectual status and the nature of genius. Wait, did I just mark myself as a genius child? Myne asks, we need to get ready for the winter, right? Effa replies, how come we need so much? An unknown voice says, okay, next up is some meat. We need to buy some so we can start salting and smoking it. Various market goods, including meat and produce, are displayed. An unknown speaker explains, this is the time of year when all the farms in the area keep what they can take care of during the winter and sell off the rest. It's the time of the year when there's the most meat on the market. The snow is pretty bad as well. The number of days the market is open shrinks down quite a bit. An unknown character says, well, there aren't many vegetables that grow during the winter, another unknown character says. And does the market shut down during the winter too? Myne asks, questioning, and preserved meats are displayed with labels, salt cured and smoked. Narration says, so storing your own food is common sense around here, and of course there was nothing like a refrigerator back home. A character's hair whips violently, indicating rapid movement. What the heck is this stench? Myne asks, distressed and questioning, reacting with intense disgust to a foul odor covering her nose. Myne observes hanging meat in a market stall while being carried by Effa. Myne reacts with profound horror to an unseen sight or smell, clutching her chest and whispering, Hi. Myne screams in terror while clinging to Effa, Hi. An unknown bystander also screams, Ahhhhh. Myne, what's wrong? Effa asks, concerned and urgent while comforting a distressed Myne. Ahhh. An unknown character screams, surprised and startled. A butcher dismembers a chicken, causing feathers to fly, while a child reacts with a surprised ah. The butcher continues dismembering the chicken, making a chuck sound while Myne cries, E. Myne is overwhelmed by sensory input from the market, thinking this is too much. The butcher finishes butchering the chicken, saying, I'm done. An unknown voice calls out Myne, wake up. Myne groggily thinks, Mom. An unknown individual comforts Myne, saying, you started screaming all of a sudden and fainted. You gave me quite a scare. Are you all right? Myne reacts with extreme distress, attempting to speak. I'm very not all right. Myne thinks, overwhelmed and in shock on the verge of breakdown. Effa comforts Myne, saying, well, okay, Myne. If you're feeling better, let's go get that meat. Myne reacts with extreme shock. An unknown character says, all the good cuts will be gone if we don't hurry. Stop fussing. Myne screams, I'm traumatized. No way, no how. I'm still not feeling very well. Myne says, weak and hesitant, resigned. I'll wait here for you so you can go on without me, she offers, resigned and slightly defeated. Myne asks an unknown woman, ma'am, could I stay here for a while? Myne expresses her physical discomfort. I'm feeling a little unwell. Then promises, I promise I won't cause you any trouble. I'll be very... Myne is suddenly running away from the unknown woman, who reacts, what? But, well, she's quite a little lady for one so small, isn't she? The unknown woman observes, smiling warmly and commenting on Myne's demeanor. A shopkeeper offers, if you're worried, I could let her wait in my shop. If she's in the back, I doubt anyone's going to run in and grab her. The unknown man says, she's feeling a little under the weather, so it would be tough lugging her around, right? The unknown woman replies, it's fine, go and get your shopping done and come on back. Myne pleads with the shopkeeper, I'll wait, I'll be good. A woman sighs, showing concern. The shopkeeper instructs Myne, I want you to wait right here. Myne replies, okay. I managed to get out of it. Myne thinks with a relieved expression while another woman departs. The shopkeeper says, no problem. Myne replies, thank you. Myne waves goodbye with a relieved expression, thinking, I managed to get out of it. Myne observes her new surroundings with a curious expression. This is a general goods store, I guess. Myne thinks, observing the interior. Myne reacts with surprise to her surroundings. Myne is deeply engrossed in reading or examining a large, open book or ledger. Myne reacts with intense shock and distress. A large, ancient-looking book is displayed, radiating light. Myne thinks, is that a book? Could that really be a book? Myne reacts with overwhelming joy, exclaiming, score. The shopkeeper asks, is this your first time seeing a book, little lady? Myne replies, I finally found one. Books do exist here, Myne thinks. The shopkeeper asks, questioning and slightly bewildered. There isn't one, he replies, matter-of-factly, answering Myne's implied question about a shop. Myne eagerly asks the shopkeeper, hey, sir, do you know a shop that sells these things? Myne reacts with shock, asking, what? Myne asks the shopkeeper, but how come there aren't bookstores if you've got books? He replies, huh. The shopkeeper explains, the only reason I have this is because a noble pawned it to me so he could pay back a loan. I can't even really sell it. The only people who would even think of buying something this expensive are the noble. These books are things that have to be written one by one, the shopkeeper explains. They're so expensive to make they're not really something that can be sold so easily. The only people who would even think of buying something this expensive are the nobles, he continues, explaining the labor-intensive and costly process of creating books. Myne processes the implications of the shopkeeper's explanation, thinking, so that's how it... Myne reacts with an outburst of anger, yelling, come on, God, why'd you have to make me a commoner? So you're telling I could have been reading already if I had been reborn as a noble instead. Grrr. Stupid. Myne's fist is clenched extremely tight, indicating intense emotion. Myne performs a deep, desperate bow, thinking, if it comes to this, I'll just have to be sincere. And when I say sincere, Myne remains in a deep, desperate bow on the floor, continuing her plea for access to a book. Otto is shown reacting with profound shock and bewilderment. Myne pleads intensely, I understand that I can't buy IT, but please just let me touch IT. Myne is prostrated on the floor, begging, I'm begging you. I just want to rub my cheek against it and smell IT a little. Even just the scent of the ink would be enough to tide. Otto sits in a chair, looking away from Myne, who remains prostrate on the floor. Myne turns her head sharply in surprise, saying, huh. Who? Otto reacts with surprise and confusion to Myne's sudden utterance or movement. Stare. Text appears. Otto firmly refuses Myne's request, saying, you're not making much sense, but I'm not going to let you touch that book. Myne reacts with extreme shock, what? Why? Myne clutches the book fiercely, refusing to let Otto take it, yelling, no. Otto pleads, come on, I just want to flip through IT. Myne reacts with extreme embarrassment or shock, while an unknown woman says, thank you for watching my daughter. Myne kneels and apologizes, saying, Myne, sorry to keep you waiting. Mom, why are you sitting down like that? Are you not feeling well again? Effa asks, concerned. Once we're home, we'll put you to bed, she reassures, as Effa expresses concern over Myne's apparent unwellness. Effa helps Myne to stand up, saying, come on, stand up. Myne grunts, Myne thinks, I finally found a book, but I couldn't even... Myne expresses gratitude to the shopkeeper, sir. Thanks for letting me wait in your shop. Otto responds to unspoken thanks. Don't mention it. Otto leads Myne away from the shop, saying, all right, let's head home, Myne. Myne replies, okay. Myne looks back over her shoulder as she is being led away. Myne reflects, seems like there aren't any bookstores here, so I can't get my hands on a book that way. Myne is deep in thought, observing her surroundings with a pensive expression. Myne declares, guess I'll just have to make them myself. Myne is engaged in internal contemplation, questioning her next course of action regarding her desire for books. Thinking, well, if they can't be bought, what can I? Myne is running with a strong sense of purpose. Myne stands resolutely, declaring, I won't lose to this world. I'm definitely getting my hands on a book. That concludes our Ascendance of a Bookworm Chapter 2 recap. What did you think of Myne's emotional encounter with her first book? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this narration, please like this video and subscribe to Storyteller for more manga recaps. We'll see you in the next